Hello and welcome to another Stellarian Games video. In this episode, we're going to be building another house. I've been shooting to make a fast build house, and this one I was able to construct in less than 30 minutes. So that's exactly what I was shooting for. It's not a very complicated house, but if you needed to make a bunch of these, you could do it in a relatively short amount of time, especially if you were going to make a bunch of these all at the same time. With this one, I just made the single house, and it took me about 30 minutes. To do the construction, add a few minutes to get it to the black base coat, and then add probably another 20 minutes or so to do the rest of the painting on it. So all in, it's less than an hour to build a house front to end. But if you were going to build a bunch of them in a row, you could probably, put out 4 or 5 of these in just a couple hours. Let's go to the crafting table. Okay, so to begin with, we're starting off with 12-inch XPS foam, and we're measuring out these sides of the house. Notice I'm only making one side and one end of the house for this cutout, and that's because we're going to be splitting it on the hot wire cutter in just a little bit. We're using a chain to texture the entire piece, both front and back. This will give it a nice stucco feel to both sides of the house. I'm finishing out the cuts, cutting out the end as well as the side, as well as a couple pieces that we're going to use to secure the 1/4-inch pieces. Now we're just cutting out splitting the pieces in half using the hot wire cutter. Now we're measuring out a door and window on the end piece and another window on one of the side pieces. Cutting those out with a nice sharp X-Acto knife, leaving them in place, sort of like we did with the hour-long house build. Then we're going to take them out and texture them. This time I used a sculpting tool to texture to get a little bit better texture on them rather than a pen. Then I pull it back in the styrofoam and put a little hot glue along the side so that it's recessed back into the piece a little bit. We're texturing the door as well as the window and putting them back in place and hot gluing along the side as well, leaving it recessed. While those are setting up, I cut the 1/2-inch squares and getting it ready to assemble the piece. I'm hot gluing onto the sides so that they're ready to glue onto the ends. I was a little nervous that the 1/4-inch styrofoam wouldn't hot glue very well, so that's why I'm using those little blocks as the corner glue points. Now it's time to start the roof with the remainder of that piece. It's again split in half, 1/2-inch XPS, and texturing the roof with simple board slats rather than doing individual shingles. This sped up this build quite a bit compared to the 1-hour build that I did earlier. It's a little bit simpler design, but the result still looks relatively nice without quite the amount of work that it had. Beveling the edge of this roof so that it'll match. This one I made a little bit higher or steeper peak, so I had to cut it again to make sure that those angles would meet up. Putting the hot glue on and attaching the roof piece. Texturing the side of the XPS to make it look like a wood grain. Just using that sculpting tool. And now I'm just adding a few detail boards to the side of the house, using hot glue to attach them so it'll be fast and ready to paint right away. I also added some of this detail wood stripping to the top just to give a little bit more interest to the roof line as well. And that's it for the build. So that took only 30 minutes to do the build front to end, and now we're just giving it a quick coat in the black Mod Podge and black paint. This will help seal it in and give it a nice firm coat for durability during playing later on. Now we're just going into the painting. We're using a raw umber brown to do the wood portions of the piece. We're also coating the door as well as all of the sideboards as well. Now using a raw sienna to give it kind of a golden brown hue. It's a dry brush, but a pretty heavy dry brush, as I wanted this to cover most of that black paint up. If you were doing multiple pieces of this, you would be able to create multiple houses and then do the painting all in one big shot, so that the paint would have a little bit more of a chance to dry before having to dry brush and handle from piece to piece. This is a relatively simple design of the house. It only has 2 windows, a single door, not a lot of detail work on it. If you want to add more detail, you can certainly do it. I was just shooting for a 30-minute build to see how much I could build in that 30-minute window. Going over that tan color again, I wasn't really happy with how much black was still showing through, so gave it one more coat. Now I'm putting a little bit of the blue on the windows. Again, I think some people don't like this method of using the blue. It fits the motif that I've been doing on other pieces. I just use a little bit of water to kind of water down and make it kind of a glowing effect on the window. Now I'm coming over and giving it a dry brush with this lighter kind of camel color, light tan. I went pretty heavy on the roof and I wasn't very happy with how that turned out. So I ended up coming back over and giving it a little bit of a watered down dark brown wash again. Not really a true wash, just kind of water and some of that dark brown paint. Just to knock some of that lighter tan back down a bit. Just doing a little touch up on some of the spots, tan, and some of the browns. Now the last step, just giving it a black wash overall. Again, it goes on pretty heavy. I didn't like how dirty it made the piece feel. It might be okay for certain scenarios, but I dabbed some of that off with a paper towel, and this is what you're left with. So hopefully you like this build. It was an attempt to make a 30-minute build. If you liked the video, please click subscribe and hit the like button, and hope to see you next time. Thank you.